Merrimack TV is committed to our community. From gavel-to-gavel coverage of town and school board meetings to updates on town services and projects, we aim to keep you connected.
Good morning, I'm Kyle Fox, Public Works Director for the town of Merrimack.
Hi, I'm Diane Trippett. I'm the town clerk tax collector for the town of Merrimack.
I'm Captain Matt Tarleton with the Merrimack, New Hampshire Police Department.
And keep the public informed of every motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
And many moments, so you can be confident that we're here for you. Thanks for watching. Stay connected. Follow Merrimack TV on Facebook.
Okay. Great. Okay, it's 6:31 p.m. on December 7th, 2020, and this meeting of the Merrimack Conservation Commission is called to order. Due to the COVID-19 and in accordance with Governor Sanu's Emergency Order number 12 and Executive Order 2020-04, this commission is authorized to meet electronically, and that is what we're doing. As stated on the agenda, the meeting is being aired live on Merrimack TV channel 20. Television access is also available to members of the public. The number should be shown on the screen, but for the record, the number is 1-312-626-6799. Also identified in the agenda is the opportunity, or was the opportunity, to submit public comment up until 4:30 p.m. this afternoon, the day of the meeting. Also identified in the agenda, I covered that. As a matter of record, before we start the meeting, each member will be asked to state for the record where they are, who else might be with them, from where they're participating, why they're participating remotely, and whether or not they can hear the audio. And I'll go first. I, Stephen Perkins, am participating remotely due to precautions associated with COVID-19. I am in a room at my home. I am alone in this room, and I can hear the audio. Gina, would you like to go next?
Yep, I'm Gina Rosati. I'm participating electronically from home. Attendance in person is not reasonably practical due to COVID-19. I am alone in the room I am in, and I can hear the proceedings.
Thank you, Gina. Mike Boisvert.
Hi, I'm Mike Boisvert. I'm participating electronically due to COVID-19. I'm alone in this room, and I can hear the audio just fine.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. Cindy?
I'm Cindy Glenn. I'm participating electronically due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I am alone in the room, and
Excellent. Thank you. Let's see, Mike Druin.
Hi, I'm Mike Druin. I'm participating remotely because of COVID-19. I'm at home, alone in the room. Yeah, and I can hear fine.
Fantastic, thank you. Tim?
Hi, I'm Tim Tenhave. I am alone in the room, but yet there are others in the house. I can hear you all just fine, and I'm participating remotely due to concerns of COVID-19.
Thank you, Tim. Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric Starr. I am participating in the meeting from my home due to COVID-19. I am alone in this room, and I can hear everyone fine.
Fabulous. Thanks, Eric. Well, I think I'd ask all three alternates to sit in. Mike, will you sit in for Gage? Eric, sure. Eric for Pete. Who else are we missing?
Your unappointed member.
Thank you, Tim. I was struggling with that. Tim, would you sit in as a voting member also?
Yeah.
Focused with the math there and lost sight of the obvious answer. We don't have, I'm looking at the waiting room right now. There are no public waiting to make public comments. So we'll skip public comments. No public hearings either. No appointments to discuss. No statutory business on the agenda for tonight's meeting, which brings us straight to new business. First new business item is a request from the Flying Eagles, and Mike Boisvert knows a little bit more about the background, or a lot more about the background of this than the rest of this. This is something we've been discussed with us before, so I'll turn it over to you, Mike.
Hi, yes. The Flying Eagles mentioned this probably over a year ago, that they wanted to cut some trees down because it interferes with their flight pattern for their model airplanes. And they just recently reached out to Steve about this. So obviously they're interested in doing that. And so I figured, I can do it, or Steve can do it. We can reach out to them, and we'll have to, we want to know exactly, I'm sure, what trees they want to cut down. And if they could mark those with flagging or something like that, then we could go and take a look at it. And because it's town property, we could then make a recommendation maybe to the town council about it. So it's probably this is something I don't think, they want to do, but obviously it's been over a year now. They're bringing it up again. So maybe in the spring we can actually, get this done for them. Does that sound like a good way to go about it?
Thinking, what would we have them do? And it looks like Mike, I see you, Mike Druin, that you've got something to add to. Would we have them just mark these trees probably so that we identify for sure what land they're on, and then talk to the. I assume it's town land, or do we know that for sure?
It's town land.
Did you have something, Mike Druin, that you wanted to add?
So are they going to pay for it, or are we going to pay for it?
Oh, I would guess that they would be the ones responsible for cutting it down and taking care of the brush and all that. That I would think would be part of the agreement.
Now, would they just cut it down and drop it wherever it falls, or are they going to bring in a crane?
Right. Well, we have to get all this information from them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know.
No, it's something we wanted to discuss here with the commission before we even really engage them in further conversations. And the next, Mike's right, the next obvious step, I think, is to meet them down there on site and just gather what the magnitude of this is. And I got a sense from his email that it wasn't. Am I off base here, Mike? I think they're talking like 6 to 8 trees.
No idea, really. They just mentioned it generally a year ago, and they're mentioning from the email. It looks pretty general, so I have no idea how many trees.
Yes, Tim.
I would suggest having a conversation with Tim Thompson as to how he would like to proceed. Before you set an expectation that show us the trees, looks like we could go forward. That's all. Because it's going to need approval by the town, and yes, I suspect they're going to want our input. So.
Okay. It's great advice, but why don't I start with him? I'll touch base with Tim. I'll share with him the email that I got from the Flying Eagles. And ask for some guidance on how to proceed. Yeah. Anyone else have any other input or vital questions that I ask of Tim or the Flying Eagles as we move forward with this?
Yeah, if you want, you can include me in that loop, and if you want. And
definitely will.
Thanks.
All right. I guess that wraps up that agenda item. The next new business item, and this was something that's not necessarily new business. It's something we've talked about wanting to do for a while here, and that's really just kind of Tim has graciously offered to give some feedback. Clearly, he approach all these new development projects with a methodology, and we hear the questions over and over again. And I know I for one am not great about thinking of what those questions should have been until I hear them asked. So I don't know, Tim. We didn't have one tonight that we can refer to, but is this something you think we could discuss tonight for a while?
Well, I can certainly take, 15, 20 minutes and walk you through some of the thinking and some of the resources that are available to all of us, that as well as some of the origins as to why we look at plans and stuff like that. So, but I do think really should be scheduling an agenda item after all the, if we have a project come along, we should schedule, a few minutes after the developers are all gone and all the engineers get to go home and stop charging their clients, and then just kind of talk about the plan and what we may have looked at. I suspect for some of the plans, we'd say, yeah, I think the comments in the meeting kind of summed it up. But there might be some other things in the background that we checked or looked at and found that it wasn't worthy to bring up in the meeting because it was covered somewhere. So we probably should be scheduling a few minutes under new business, after all the plans have been looked at, whenever we have one. So, and it could be a 30-second thing, or it could be a 10-minute thing. So, but let me see if I can share my screen, because there's a few things I want to show you all. Oh, that wasn't what I was looking for. It's been a while since I've done this on Zoom, because I don't use Zoom at work. All right, I think that's what I want to share. Hopefully it clicks over. Yeah, so I'm just trying to rearrange some windows here for a second. That way I can still see all your faces. So I believe you can see my screen, and you can see in the front, in the top left is a big zoom in of chapter 36-A of the state statutes. It's probably a little hard to see. I've got not sure I can blow it up. Yeah, well, I'm not having much luck with that. So what I want to highlight for you is this part of the RSA. Hopefully you can see that. Do you want me to try another way to make it bigger?
That works.
Yeah, does it? Because I can. All right. Is that better?
Oh, that is better.
Yeah, I can try one more time here with that too. So, yeah. All right. So hopefully that's better. So really what it is, so this is the RSA that governs conservation commissions and established commissions and their makeup and their powers. But the first real paragraph here is all about, you may establish a conservation commission for the proper utilization and protection of the natural resources and for the protection of watershed resources of said city or town. And after that, everything else all falls in line for those two major areas, natural resources and watershed resources. So that's kind of the basis of conservation commissions as a whole. In case you haven't had a chance to read the RSA, I suggest you do, because there's other things about powers and whatever else. But for this part of the conversation related to project plans, I wanted to highlight that to all of you. So, any questions on that before I go to the next thing? Or just interrupt me however you prefer to do it. So, all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through from the town website how you can find these things. So that's the home page of the town website. And if you go to departments and go to community development, you can now see the main page for community development. So one of the things that you should note is the town code like Chapter 111, but in this case, Chapter 167 is stormwater management standards. And since we're all about, taking care of the watershed resources, I recommend you take a quick gander through this. This leverages state BMPs, but something for you to be aware of. So if you click on that link, what you're going to get is this to pop up. And, so it talks about how to protect the water quality in the town. So these things, BMPs, best management practices, all come from DES. So if you go to the DES site and you say you want to see BMPs for water or stormwater, you will find the BMPs. It's a very extensive document or series of documents. But I just wanted you to realize that when we see our plans that come before us, we usually see stormwater plans in them. And this is what tells you need to be covering all of these. So do we, the Conservation Commission, need to verify that, 167-4, 2, and all those are there? No, that's not our job. That is done by the town or the engineering organization that supports the town in doing the reviews for plans and stuff like that. But I think it's good practice for you to just take an idea, to take a walk through this and read about it and see what it is they're going to do. It's very short. But it points you to things. It gives you an idea that there is a background and there's things that need to be covered. So now, once you're on there, here, let me see. I'm going to do this kind of live here. I had computer problems earlier, so I'm a little frazzled, not as prepared as I wanted to be. I almost thought I wasn't going to be able to log in for this meeting. So basically what I did is search for New Hampshire DES, and you can find that they have a whole water division in the New Hampshire DES. And when you get here, you see loads and loads of links. So there are BMPs for groundwater contamination. There is the alteration of terrain, a whole host of things. So let's see. So stormwater program is here, and I think that is the link. Yeah, so this gets into the water quality rules and regulations here. I'll just stop here. I won't dig any deeper, but you're going to find that DES has a whole bunch of information related to water and how you treat water, what you can do around water, wetlands, the Wetlands Bureau you can look up. All that is here. Lots of great information here. So stormwater management for homeowners is listed here. So if you're a homeowner, you're not sure what to do, say you got water running across your lawn or seeping into your basement, what activities can I do to manage that? If you have a stream or a brook going across your property and you're not sure how to deal with it, that's something else you can probably find out about here. So lots of great information in case you're curious. I don't think it's completely pertinent to what we're doing here, but I just wanted to make you aware that there is a great amount of background available. So. All right, so I'm going to drift away from the stormwater stuff. So let me go back. I lost the page I was at. So I'm going to go back to departments, community development. The other place to look here, which is important to us and governs how the town looks at site plans and subdivisions and all that is you go to planning and zoning, and you can see that the site plan regulations are here, subdivision regulations are here. Most of the stuff we do and interact with the planning board is covered in site plan regulations, okay? And the subdivision regulations bring you back to them. So if you go to the site plan regulations and simply, I know this is not a browser you probably all use, but if you just search for conservation, first thing you're going to find is on page 7 of the site plan regulations is it says that we, the Conservation Commission, along with all these other town entities, have a review required for site plans, which is the town regulation, which enables us to have that review. I've almost said authority, but we have really no authority here. We have the ability to make recommendations in this, in the planning board, supported by community development, coordinates and make sure that that information gets flowed to the planning board through Steve, our chair, providing those comments. So number one, this is where we are enabled to do what we do. I'm just going to leave conservation in the search window, and you can see that it pops up in a few different ways here. But in case you're curious, when we look at things that are in the Aquifer Conservation District or Wellhead Protection Area, which are things that we're asked to look at, oh, by the way, they now have the language that says only low phosphate, slow release nitrogen fertilizers shall be used. So where we've been making those comments and all that, it's now part of our regulations. So they took care of that last year, and it did get all updated. So Steve, if you ever get a note from chairman of the planning board or whomever saying, yeah, we've got that covered, you're going to know why, because it's now part of our regulations. But I do think it's pertinent in our reviews to look that they have, when they come to us, that they have this kind of language in there, because as we know, it still doesn't happen on a regular basis. And it can be partially because they come see us before they see the planning board. If they've gone to the planning board and they still have it and there isn't, and they don't pop up and say, hey, yeah, the planning board told us we know, then we make sure that we pass that along. And by going with the letters that Steve writes, it's sure to be reviewed later to make sure it's covered. So I just wanted you to see that. There are a lot of pages to these regulations, so you may want to take a look at it. But you can see as you scroll through here that they've covered a lot of things related to vegetation and other activities. So that's just one. I want to make sure I've covered all of them. So another thing that we get involved in, let me see what page I ended up on there. Oh, I went too far. When I get back to page 16. I want to share. So this is, by the way, this whole section here that starts on 16 gets into the design of drainage systems and stormwater systems. So if you're curious why you see all the detail on the plans, a lot of that is being done because they're required to put it in their site plans. So just for your awareness, okay? Let me pick up to page 21, I think I wanted to get to. Is this 21? This is 32. Wow. Oh, I got that one. Okay. So on 32 here, what you're going to start to see is, whoops, I'm going in the wrong direction. Yeah, so sorry, it was already highlighted for me. So this is the no salt or chemical de-icers in an aquifer or wellhead protection area. Okay, and the wording for green green snow pro certification. Okay, so that's also been incorporated into the site plan regulations, but it's not a bad thing to check for or mention. If you remember or recall from our last meeting, I believe every applicant had already been aware of this kind of language. So either they read the regulations or they were forewarned in some way, but it's not a bad thing to look at. So, but don't feel bad about saying you recommend in an aquifer conservation property no salt or de-icers. It's in our regulations, okay? Now you might come across a review that falls on the edge of an aquifer conservation district or something like that. It's okay even if a piece of the property is on it to bring it up. And the reasons why you'd want no salt is a lot of the properties may be next to town wells or be feeding our aquifers. So, I've been talking about water and stuff like that, but do you realize that all the drinking water in the town of Merrimack comes from the ground? Whether you're a private landowner, whether you own well, or you're on MVD water, it's all coming from the ground. So protecting our watershed resources is extremely important to us here in the residents of Merrimack. The only place where that's an exception are the folks that are on Pennachuck in the southern portion of our town. There are a number of people on Pennachuck water, and their water is surface water. It comes from the ponds and lakes around the Pennachuck system that you see when you drive out Tinker Road and stuff like that. So, but I just wanted to highlight these kinds of things for you so you're aware of them. Let me move on. I've got one more. So there is one more time when we get asked to look at things. Yeah, here's more Green Snow Pro in here. But I wanted to get to, So if we come across an area where someone is storing salt, I just wanted you to be aware that you have an opportunity to weigh in and take a look at it, a salt shed or something like that. So, and this is found on page 61. Hopefully that will help Dawn when she's putting the minutes together. So, all right, so I'm going to now, just since we're talking about things that we used to have to comment on but are now covered in regulations, there's another one that we usually covered on, and that is straw. So you're going to find now that straw shows up in a few different places around temporary erosion protection as well as during construction protection. Straw bales. If you search for hay, it doesn't show up in the regulations anywhere. So hopefully they're following straw, but as we learned at our last meeting, some of the boilerplate stuff that the engineers put into their plans still say hay in them. And it's okay to bring it up. But if you see that straw is in all the plans, there's really no reason to bring it up because they have obviously looked. So, or they're paying attention. So. All right, what's next? So, see if I can get, so in community development, so we looked at site plan regulations. You can also look at subdivision regulations. By the way, they've got another link here for stormwater. So this is all under the planning and zoning link, okay? So I wanted to just look at one item on page 4-7. So let me go back. So, yeah. No, I'm sorry, it was 4-15. All right, so there's nothing particular on this page, but what it is that these are the sections that deal with stormwater drainage systems, whether they're closed or open systems. And you might want to just be aware of what's going on in here because it talks about some of the calculations that people need to do and just gives you some awareness of some of the things they need to follow. But when putting a site plan together, all of them are required to do what is known as a stormwater plan. And right now, what I'm highlighting for you is the stormwater plan from our last meeting for the 25 Craftsman Lane project. And on page, it says 1 of 3, but I guess it is it's the first page after the locust map here. But what they're showing you here is And they use these funky letters, but these are the soil types that are found on this property. And soil types are really important when it comes for water infiltration. And like I mentioned earlier, since all the water that we drink comes from the ground, we want water going into the ground. We want it to infiltrate. Because if it can't infiltrate, then we're not replenishing our aquifers, and therefore, we'll have continuous water bans and all kinds of other concerns, and hopefully not dry wells. So there's a number of different soil types, and what you should find in every stormwater plan is the soil survey, like you see here, and it should give you an idea of what those soil types are. And lo and behold, we saw two types, WDA and WDC. So Windsor loamy sand and a different type of Windsor loamy sand because of the slopes. So slopes in the contour also have a piece of what's going on for water infiltration, because you rain on a hill and most of the water runs off the hill, okay? But some of it will infiltrate. So what you'll see though is these kinds of words, loamy sand, or sand in it is great for infiltrating water. Water passes right through sand, okay? If you see clay or you see other types, just think about what it's telling you, and do you think it can hold water? Now, loamy also holds water. Loam holds water. It's great for growing grass and all that stuff, but eventually water will seep through the loam and hit the next layer. And when they show you these soil types, they're not showing you that little green grass on the top of the ground. They're showing you what's down a few inches, so that way you know what's going on. So looking for sand types that support water infiltration is important. Now, I can give you a nice thick book that I got from Pete Gagnon. Pete's not with us anymore, but he was very much a soils man, a member of the planning board for a long time. And he's got the soil maps for the state of New Hampshire. You could find them for the state of New Hampshire if you're curious. But if you read through that big, thick manual, which I didn't do a Google search for today, but I suspect it's online as well, you should be able to look up what these soil types are and learn a whole lot more than my 2 or 3 sentences that I just gave you now, okay? So you'll find Merrimack has a lot of Windsor loamy sand. We've got a lot of it. So, but when you look at site plans, especially plans in the western part of our town, when you look at elevations, if you find plots that have elevations of 200 to 400 feet, you figure they're going to be hills, because Merrimack is mostly around 200 feet of elevation and lower to sea level. But once you get above 200, you're going to be in the hills of Merrimack. And in the hills, we are truly the granite state. And you'll see lots of ledge and rocks and stuff like that. And if you're looking at plans and they're looking to do a subdivision on a very hilly area, or when you look at the elevations in a site plan, you might want to be asking yourself, where's all that water going when it rains? Is it going in the ground? Is it channeling off? And stuff like that. So that's one thing that you'll see in site plans is the soil types, because that will tell you whether or not the soil can infiltrate. Hopefully I'm not talking too much for all of you. The other thing that I look in site plans, and let me see if I can do a search for it, is the stormwater calculations. Yeah, I figured it wasn't going to go with it. It wasn't going to have it all like that. All right, so back to the beginning of the plan. I know they're not too far in. So this is a pretty simple plan, which is why I brought it up. But you can see they have pre-development drainage and post-development drainage. And what's important here is we want to know what's going on with the water today and what's going to go on with the water once they're done doing what they're going to do. So let me move to section 2. Yeah, so they talk about their methodology here. The water runoff. Usually what we do is we look at things by the 5-year, 10-year, 25-year, and 50-year storm. because what that's getting into is the amount of water and how quickly you get it in a storm like that. So what we've had more recently, I wouldn't call the 25 or 50-year storm. Okay, but what's interesting about these is they have to pick a place to number. They use modeling, so they use software tools to help them understand all of this. But what I want to get to here is what they're going to show you is the storm event that is of interest, and our site plan regulations dictate which storm events that they need to be looking at. They get into flow. So you learn cubic feet per second, CFS, that's what this is. So this is cubic feet of water moving per second. Okay, they get into the overall volumes. So what I look at when I see these charts for 25 year and 50 years, I look at the pre-development flows and volumes and the post-development flows and volumes. What you want to see, if they've done their work correctly, is you want to see that they're not flowing more water off the property than they did before, ideally less, and so that's volume, I should say, and then the amount or how quickly it moves, you also want that to slow down, because if it slows down, it has more time to infiltrate. So the engineers that work for the town as well as community development should really be looking at these kinds of things, but I like to verify them. And if the numbers don't change, if they're relatively the same, so here's the 25 year and before and after is the same, and as well as the 50-year storm here, okay, for this area. So when they put this plan together, this person broke it up in a few different sections, and I'd have to, whoops, oh, that's not what I want. Go back. Oh, I know why. Because when you flip to the map, it shows you what the different areas are that he was talking to. So I'm just going to get that out of my way. Let me go back. Make it bigger again. Hold on. Sorry, the screen's probably moving very fast on you. So if you recall on this plan, they really weren't doing a whole lot with the water because they were basically just going to pave to the loading dock in the back. And then they were going to do some cleanup improvements, and they weren't adding on to the building or anything like that. So you wouldn't expect a whole lot of change, but for bringing in a brand new building, you would expect to see some management or handling of things. So again, the engineer laid out different areas because that person knew from the elevations that water would travel differently depending on where they were on the site. So that's why he's marked off different areas. You can see that in this case, in the North B area, actually did do some good reduction of both flow and volume. So, which is what you want to see, because that hopefully will provide more water to go again into the ground. So, when they can't control all the water on their site, you want to get an idea for where is the water flowing to if it's leaving their site. So what I like to look at is sometimes they'll actually show you arrows on the plan as to where the water's going. If not, what you'll see me do in the meetings, as I'll ask, so where, how are you handling your water, and where's it going? So a number of months ago, when we looked at the Flatley property where they were looking to build some storage or incubator buildings, I believe, on the Flatley site, I asked questions about the water running along the front of the road, understand what was going there. I also asked questions about, they were planning to treat the water and then push it into the ponds on site. And I know from looking at the aerials of that site and being familiar with the parcel that those ponds eventually, actually those ponds are embedded in the Dumpling Brook. And that brook actually leaves their site and takes off and goes to another site, and eventually it crosses our own parcel before going into the Merrimack River. And that's why I wanted to understand what their flows and volumes were, and whether they were going to increase them or not. Because if the volumes were going up, or in their case, they didn't have the stipulations to manage volumes. They weren't allowed to infiltrate the water. I wanted to know how that could impact other parcels. So when I look at stormwater plans, or I look at plans in general as to what's going on with the water, I like to look at what's happening to the abutting parcels. Are they fully handling all the water on site, which is ideal, because it rains there, it might as well stay there and then infiltrate. And if not, what are they doing about it? Our regulations state that they can't make it worse for anyone, but I look at it not only just to see what's going on, but I want to know if it's impacting potentially a wetland or something like that, because people might want to make sure that water coming off your property doesn't go into their basement. That's a great thing. But I also want to know what's going on with the brook that's in the back of your yard. And is that going to get overflowed? And that's going to create issues even further downstream and stuff like that. So it's worthwhile to look at where's the water going if it's leaving the site, and how's it being managed. And in their stormwater plans, there's a lot of ways to manage the velocity or the flow of the water, which is cubic feet per second. That's why what you'll see on a lot of our plans is the water will get channeled into a detention pond, if you want, for lack of a better term. And those detention ponds can overflow. So what happens when it leaves the pond? And usually what they do is they put some sort of a spreader. They lay rocks all across, so what the water goes through it, the rocks, and they use bigger rocks, not pebbles, but 3 and 4 inch ones, because that will help slow down the water. Because if it slows down the water, it stops erosion, but it also provides opportunities for infiltration. So, all right. So every plan is kind of like that. This was the simpler plan for the Craftsman Lane property. This is now from our same meeting, just the last meeting. This is the Herrick Street plan, where they were looking to put in an automobile dealership, I think a dealership. And you can see that they also have they have the same soil types information you saw in the last one. You see WDB, so that's another Windsor type. And if you scroll through, you'll get to see a lot of the same kind of information in the legends and the explanation for what they are. So, and then if you go a little bit further, you'll get to see, the stormwater from the storms. See, what's really nice about this one, by the way, is they actually tell you in scientific terms what these different Windsor types mean. So, which is really nice to have, but it really is for the, geared towards someone with knowledge in this area. So maybe not necessarily for the lay person. So, but again, when you see sand, great thing to infiltrate water. So, all right. And like I said, it should have the stormwater charts. Oh, all kinds of data. So most of it we don't need to worry about, but I do look to see what happens with the different storm events and stuff like that. So let me just take a quick look. So some of the things that I look at on plans that I'm not going to show you pictures of and all that is we talked about keeping the water on site, but yeah, actually this came up at our last meeting. So I brought up water oil separators. For that dealership, they were going to have a parking lot, and they were going to be parking vehicles, potentially doing a little bit of service on them. It's nice that they were incorporating into their stormwater collection system an oil water separator. And really what that's all about is oil water, you put it in a jar or a can, you'll actually see it separate. And the oils and stuff like that will usually float on top, and you want to keep them there so that way you can come in later with some maintenance and clean them all out and get them out of there, so they don't eventually go through your whole system and get further down, because oil can contaminate water, especially if it gets down into the ground. A drop of oil can contaminate gallons of water so that it's not drinkable for humans. So that's one of the things we look at, especially when there's lots of parking lots involved. So shopping malls, commercial centers are probably things that you want to be looking for those kinds of things. So large industrial sites with lots of employee parking, another thing to look at. So cars coming on site can drip antifreeze, or they could drip oil. We've all seen the dots in our own driveways at times, but they can also bring salt. So they could be bringing salt into an aquifer area where you don't want to have salt, which there's nothing you can really do about that. You can't demand that they wash their car before they drive into your parking lot. But you can use that. You can look at that effect along with their own de-icing, and then wonder, should we be allowing de-icing compounds? So now some of the things to think about when it comes to de-icing compounds, or shall I say, not using them. Your alternatives are sand, typically. But another strong alternative is the sun. So you may want to be looking at, if they're putting plans together and they're looking for your input, like they're coming in early, you may suggest that they put parking lots or driveways in the southern side of a parcel where there's apt to be more sun versus the north side of a parcel. Because here in New Hampshire, the sunny side is always the south side of a home. So I know my last home was on a hill and my driveway was on the north side of the house. So I can tell you the steepest part of my driveway never saw the sun, and I was always fighting to keep it clean. So it's just something to think about. So what else do I have? So you'll hear the term impervious material. Impervious is just that. It means it doesn't allow water to go through. So some of the things they need when they're putting plans together, they need to be looking at, are they creating new impervious material on a site? And in so doing, things like driveways and parking lots usually are impervious. There are some technologies that are pervious, but mostly they're impervious. So when they have that, they have to obviously be collecting that water somewhere, because it's not going in the ground where they have it, but we just want to make sure that it's being put somewhere so it can go in the ground. And that's all those detention basins or underground systems. I think we saw at the day spa being proposed. Now we know where the day spa was. Now then it was going to become, it's intended to be an assisted living place, that they were talking about putting systems under the driveways and under the parking lots to collect the water. Ideally, I suspect their soils allow them to do that. Because if it was all granite and ledge, they wouldn't be able to do that. But it's also because it keeps the disruption of the site to a more minimum by putting it in the parking lots, if at all possible. The key, though, with any kind of system is there needs to be maintenance done on those systems. So you want to see on the plans, or ask the developer, is there a maintenance plan for it, and are they going to be required to follow it? And hopefully our town is reviewing plans and then following up to make sure that it's getting done. So because they all fill with sand, we throw sand all over our driveways. That sand goes somewhere. It'll go into the drainage systems. It can clog them up. Debris of any sort from trees or whatever else can clog things up. Trash, unfortunately, that might be thrown from someone else's car can cause that too. So what else do I have? The other thing when you're looking at water, probably a little bit more obvious, is wetlands. So if there's wetlands on the site, we want to know how close they're getting to them. Are they disturbing? The town has a 25-foot no disturb buffer and a 40-foot buffer for development. So I believe that's mostly everywhere. Now, a person can approach the zoning board, the ZBA, and get approval to break the law, meaning that they could infiltrate that 40-foot area if they can claim a hardship, and that could get approved. But in general, if there hasn't been a ZBA action, they have to stay within those limits. So the 25-foot no disturb buffer should be. So what I've gone back to is the site plan regulations. I know it's in one of these. So this shall not disturb the root zones of trees designated for preservation. That's not what I was after, but maybe it's in subdivision. I can't find it offhand. Sorry, I won't waste your time. But those pieces are all also in our rules as to what people can do. So wetlands are wet because of a lot of different reasons, mostly because their soils don't allow the infiltration of water, which that means that tends to mean that the water stays near the surface. It doesn't actually have to be a puddle or a pond to be a wetland. It could just be wet, and it'll have certain vegetation. So there's a whole set of rules by DES what determines what is truly a wetland. But if you think about a wetland and you think about taking all the trees away from it, what's going to happen to the wetland most likely? It will most likely dry up, or it will change its characteristics. So when you look at projects with large wetlands, you want to understand what's going on near them and how close to them, and are they planning on removing trees or doing other things that could cause damage to that wetland down the road, not only to the wetland itself and its water ability, but also all the natural pieces that go along around them, all the critters and stuff like that, that are so important to the whole life cycle chain, the chain of life and everything else. So that's something that I look at when I look at wetlands and what's going on near wetlands. Is ideally there's nothing going on near them, and if it is, are they doing something that will disturb the wetland in a more permanent manner by opening it all up, which is usually the thing that you see the most. People will stay within that 25 feet, but they'll take down every tree near it, and you try to suggest that they don't do that, or they do it for their construction phase and then they put it back. Unfortunately, it takes a long time for it to come back. So. All right, let me see what else I've got. We've talked about salt and fertilizers. Do you all understand why we shoot for no phosphate or low phosphate? I see mostly yeses, but essentially phosphate encourages in high enough concentration certain things like algae blooms and stuff like that. So if the phosphates are running off the soil and they're making it into streams and brooks and eventually ponds like Horseshoe Pond or Babusick Lake or Natticook Lake, it could create a lot of issues with encouraging the types of bacteria that you don't want a lot of. Now, those exist in all those water bodies, but there's a balance, and the phosphates can throw off the balance. So nitrogen also can be a thing. Nitrogen is great for doing a quick green up. Plants love nitrogen. You want slow release nitrogen because the thinking is that it will infiltrate the soil where you put it versus running off and going somewhere else. Okay, but you don't want it to shock or go in quickly. You want it to slowly make its way in so that it does the most work that it can do in a positive manner. So what else? All right, so some other things when I look at industrial properties, things that are going to be done is and I think Gage brought this up when the dealership came on, is what kind of chemicals are you storing on site? And if they are, do they have proper storage for them? Do they have spill kits and proper training for their people? Now, a lot of that now is rolled into our regulations, but it's worth asking the question. Okay, and then And then I guess the last thing, especially when it comes to subdivisions, those are places where they're putting in 20 homes or 15 homes or even 4 or 5 homes or 77 homes or whatever else, is realize when you're reviewing that subdivision or that site plan, that's the last chance you get to say something. So if you've got concerns at all about what's going to go on in the building or what could go on in the future, say they're building something, it looks like, wow, that could really be great for this use, but since it looks like a warehouse, it could also be used for industrial storage. You might want to ask about things like floor drains. You know, do they have floor drains? I'm not even sure they're allowed anymore, but at one point you could have floor drains. So you might want to have an idea of what's going on with them. Floor drains, you want to know where that drain's going. Is it being collected to a central bucket or pit that can then be cleaned out and taken away, or is it going to end up in the stormwater system, which it shouldn't anymore? We're much better at it now, but you know, where's that water going? So also when you look at buildings and what's going on, it's a good idea to keep an eye out as to what kind of septic is going on. Are they joining the town septic system, or are they going to have their own leach fields and stuff like that? If they're going to have leach fields, good engineers, when they're putting projects together, and it may be required now by the state, but you want to have enough room so that way if a primary leach field fails, that there's room to put in another leach field. But again, I think most of that's covered now pretty well by either DES, because DES has to approve septic systems or whatever. But some of the things that you used to have to look at a long time ago, more so than today. And I think I've rambled long enough, and that covers most of the notes that I put together. I was going to put it into a PowerPoint, and then I realized that if I just rambled and Don took good meeting notes, you could use those meeting notes. So unless anyone's got questions, I think I'm done, and I will stop sharing the screen.
Well, thank you for putting that together, Tim. That was incredibly informative. Got a bunch of notes here. Incredibly thorough too. I need to spend some time with those websites. I didn't know all those resources were there. But yeah, I'll visit those. Did anyone have questions for Tim? No? Okay. Well, we'll move on. And thanks again for sharing that. And if we do have we'll see what the agenda looks like for the January 4th meeting too. If it's a night where we have maybe just one item of statutory business and a fairly lean agenda or something, maybe I'll reach out and ask you if you're able to give us a hot wash after that, after the engineers and everything are done and have gone home. Maybe we just spend a few minutes recapping how that discussion went and what items we might have missed or could have developed further. All right, well, I guess we'll move on to new business. We've done new business. I guess we'll move on to old business. For starters, I think I'll start by making a motion to take from the table the election of a vice chair. Would anyone like to second that motion? Gina seconds the motion.
Mayor, I'm just unmuting myself. I second.
Thank you. There's probably not a lot of discussion on this. We talked about it a couple of times. The chairperson, the vice chair, and the secretary shall be elected. It's a part of our charter. They must be served by full-time members.
Steve?
Yes.
Excuse me. Do we need to do a roll call vote now to take this off the table?
I suppose we do. Thank you for reminding me of that. So I'm a yes. Gina?
Yes.
Mike Boisvert?
So what's this roll call for exactly? You guys broke up for a minute.
This is to take this off the table. This was an item we had tabled from the last two Conservation Commission meetings.
Yes.
To bring it back into the discussion, it was recommended we use a motion to bring it back into discussion.
I vote yes.
Thank you, Mike. Cindy?
Yes.
Mike Druin?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Okay, and I know we revisited the charter recently, I think back in June, but just to remind everyone, Article 4, elections, says the chairperson, vice chair, and secretary shall all be elected by a majority of full-time, alternate, and ex officio voting members. Only full-time members shall hold these offices. The term for each office shall be 1 year or until a successor is duly elected. Officers may be re-elected. In the event that a chairperson cannot or will not continue in the elected position, the vice chair may serve as the chairperson for the remainder of that term. If the chairperson cannot continue the elective position or does not want to, the chairperson position, the commission shall elect a new officer at the next regularly scheduled meeting. And obviously we didn't quite do that with the next regularly scheduled meeting. We tabled that a few times. But I have spoken with a lot of you, and one of our commissioners has graciously volunteered to fill this void for us to get us through the annual meeting in June. So with that, I will, Gina, would you like to do anything?
I nominate Michael Boisvert to be the vice chair until the end of the fiscal year.
I second the motion. By roll call vote, I'm a yes. Gina?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes, thank you, Mike.
Mike Druin?
Yes.
Tim?
I just want to know, did your arm have to go all the way around your back before you said yes?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I say yes.
Thank you. And Eric?
Yes.
And I will say, to Mike's credit, I know he's a humble sort of creature, but he understood. This is something we have to have. I don't plan on having any major attendance issues, but it is important that we have someone, and he understood, and he's been with us a long time and said he would graciously get us through till the end of this term, and hopefully some of the other members of the commission who may be new or may just look for expanded roles will talk to me about that, and we can I can really sell you on some of the high points of that function. So I think that was all for that. Moving on.
Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item up for business is the annual report. We did, it was requested we make one modification to the annual report, and that was just to discuss the impact that COVID-19 had on the Conservation Commission and what types of measures we took to continue doing business as normal as possible. Gina, you sent that out to everyone. We've all had a chance to read it. Anything else you want to highlight in that?
No, the only thing that I had made a change on, I did reflect that Michael Swisher did tender his resignation, and I did add two things about COVID-19. One, COVID-19 restrictions increased visitors to all of our properties without concern, except for issues at Wildcat Falls Conservation Area, including increased neighborhood parking, which necessitated a temporary closure. And my second point was COVID-19 concerns have prompted the Merrimack Conservation Commission to meet virtually for much of 2020. Subcommittee meetings have been put on hold until further notice. And I thank those of you who helped me make those 2 points. So just those two changes, and then I'll send it off to Kristen tomorrow if it's all good with everyone. We don't need to take a formal vote. Does anyone have any problems with it?
I see everyone shaking their head up and down. Sounds great.
Everyone's good? I'll
Thanks.
send it tomorrow.
The only other item under old business was Greater Woods trail maintenance. I know we did have some trail maintenance recently. Mike went out and engaged with that and handled what was out there. Mike, did you have more you wanted to bring up about that?
Yes. So I don't mind at all going out there, especially like in this half of Greater Woods by my house. But with the subcommittees being, not active right now, and basically before Matt Karen, a tree fell. 2 days later, the tree was cut, gone. It just magically happened. Matt Karen pretty much rode around and took care of everything. So now that's not happening. So what's happening as far as replacing that? I can do half of Greater Woods, but who's going to do the other half? Does our subcommittee is going to do it? Like, who does Horse Hill? Does Horse Hill subcommittee pretty much take care of it? Who does Wasserman? Matt was everywhere before. He did a lot of. It was amazing. So we gotta just, I think as a conservation commission, we should, have people that we know will be doing this, or we can rely on or contact.
Yeah, and I think there's a network out there. Do you agree with this, Mike? There's a network out there that might be able to help us with this. In fact, we've heard from some of them who may not even be members of our subcommittees, but they have provided public input. In the recent past, a few names came to mind when I was thinking this earlier. I bet we've never asked them to do this sort of thing before because
I've actually had some members of the biking community have done it. They contacted me and they took care of it, a tree. Because the bikers running, a walker can just walk over a tree. Bikers, now it's getting to be winter. It's not so much, but there'll be more storms knocking stuff down. But yeah, there are, but still there's going to be a lot of stuff falling down. It's not going to be getting removed like it was before.
Mm-hmm. I will only guess a lot of times too that the person that identified a lot of these down trees and so forth was the same one riding around with a chainsaw on the back of his bike. I think we may be hearing about it more often because before no one heard that tree fall in the woods except for Matt, who was quickly responded to it. So maybe it's just maybe now it's just a matter of funneling that information to those volunteers that we already have using these trails who are willing to help us with that. I could be totally mistaken there, but
So one of the things that I've been talking about doing is because we do have on our website, we talk about volunteer opportunities, but we don't really list anything. So one of the things that I do need to do, and it's on my list of things to do, is start organizing our volunteers better so that we do have a group that, it'd be nice if the subcommittee members, would be responsible for their own properties for going out and taking, whatever falls. But I think that if I can gather up a group of people when they say, hey, volunteer opportunities, yeah, we need somebody to go out and, when a tree falls down, go out with a chainsaw and cut it up and move it.
That's something too that's sometimes a lot easier being done with just like one or two people, like a meeting, so that doesn't become a meeting, has to be called or something. Just like, Matt used to just take care of it.
Right. Well, that's what I'm thinking is maybe we have 2 or 3 people and they just kind of, they like to take trees down. And when a tree comes down, we just kind of, message them and say, hey, tree down in this location. And they're like, I'm on it. Kind of how Matt used to be. So as I'm kind of going through and trying to gather up all of the volunteers and see who's, we'll see who's still interested and see if we can divide people out into groups.
Yeah, we just
hopefully by next meeting.
Let's say we need to make sure that the people who are handling equipment like that are properly trained and understand what's required, the appropriate protection that need to be wearing and stuff like that as well. So,
good point.
I don't think we should encourage anyone just to grab a chainsaw and go out there and have at it. So,
yeah, one bad thing about that is like, if there's something out in the middle of, say, like Skyline, you might have to walk 2 miles to get to it, so So if I have a chainsaw in my backpack, I may not be packing chaps and a helmet, and you know what I mean.
Face shield. The whole,
Yeah, yeah. That's probably not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Well, the current, or what I believe is still current, subcommittee for Horse Hill. Sorry, they have some. He was done. They have members that can take care of trees right now, and if the tree's too big or it's dangerous, then in the past they've said, can the town do this? Right. So the current members, I feel comfortable, would be able to decide whether or not it was safe, to take something down.
You get photobombed there, Cindy.
I know.
Yeah, and I think Greater Woods is right now just has a lack of communication. I mean, Matt left, and so all of a sudden there's this, there's a hole there, and so it's got to get going again.
Just so you know, Nat Fairbanks did send an email asking about subcommittee members, and so I let them know if they do want to come to a Conservation Commission meeting and kind of have a subcommittee, meeting on our Conservation Commission meeting, they're welcome to. And he said he didn't feel that needed to happen right now. So he is aware that they are welcome to bring any issues to us, and we can discuss at our meetings.
Excellent. Thank you all. Other business discussions, communications and correspondence received by the commission. Really don't have any that we haven't covered up till now. Gina, you don't have anything that I forgot about, do you? Nope. Okay.
The only thing that I can think of, and it is related to Greater Woods, for the bypass road, do we want to set up a walk now because hunting season's almost over, or do we want to wait some more? We had talked last meeting about a walk to, that item is tabled, so we can just leave it tabled till the next meeting.
I don't think we're going to pull it off between now and the next meeting.
Right. No, we won't.
Subcommittee updates. Anyone? Anything to share?
So you saw the email at Scholar, Mark Todarski moved the boulders back into place, moved the new boulders. He's a great guy. He actually asked for more rocks. So if anybody knows of more, and we talked about this, and I don't know if that road is suitable for it, or if trucks could even get under that railroad, overpass. But at least part of that road, would that be potential for maybe getting on the list for some of that reground asphalt? To do like maybe the first half of that road, or a parking area on the top by the kiosk or something like that. I want your opinions on that. Could that be used in that area?
The milled asphalt like at Wildcat Falls? So
right, yeah.
I think, Tim, you know more, isn't that's usually something they only do at certain times of the year. I would highly doubt there'd be any more milling going on between now and spring.
Yeah, this is to get on a list for, I don't know, like 2 years from now, maybe that would happen or something.
Yeah, the right thing to do is just talk to Kyle, see what Kyle's thoughts are.
All right, I'll add that to my to-do list.
Oh, look at that.
I want to be part of that too.
Okay, I'll include you on anything you want to be included on. Let's see, I guess moving on, presentation of the minutes.
I will make a motion to approve here. To approve the Merrimack Conservation Commission meeting minutes dated November 16th, 2020 with changes as follows. I didn't find much. These are very, very, very clean meeting notes. The only thing that I found
Second.
on page, what?
I'll
Oh,
second.
I'm sorry, second?
Got it.
You second?
I did, yes.
Gotcha. Wait a minute. Mark that one. Okay, so on page 5, line 15, the sentence says RE was parking for 100 plus cars. I'm not sure what the RE was for. So I'm gonna kind of toss that back to Dawn, and if she had a reason for it being written that way, then that's great. But I'm not sure if it was regarding or what it was. And my other one, the only other one I had was on page 6, line 46. For an individual to seek, I'm going to say that that word shouldn't be R, it should be out. To seek out grants, donations. That was Tim's. Does that sound right, Tim?
It does. Yep.
Okay. And that's all I had.
Okay. Does anyone else have any? Okay, a roll call vote to approve the minutes. I'm a yes. Gina,
Yes.
Mike, Flaubert,
Yes, yes,
thank you. Cindy,
Yes.
Mike Druin,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
and Eric.
I kind of want to vote no just for fun, but yes.
All right, thank you. Motion carried 7-0-0.
Did I miss something? Is Eric sitting in for anyone today? I have Mike Druin and Tim sitting in.
Yes, someone's sitting in for Pete, someone's sitting in for Gage, and someone is sitting in the vacant position.
Okay, gotcha.
Commissioner comments, Mike, Flaubert, anything?
no comment. No additional comments.
Cindy,
Nope, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Mike Druin,
No.
Tim,
A couple of things. So Eric has been doing good work on putting together the LSIP walk notes. I owe him some feedback, and I'll do that after this meeting. Eric, I apologize for being a little late on that. So as Gina mentioned earlier, deer hunting season, the most popular hunting season that people equate with hunting season in general, came to an end yesterday for all areas. So that means that hunters shouldn't be out there anymore practicing that sport. So people can feel a little bit freer to go out on the properties now that they've given the opportunity for hunters to have their opportunity on the land by themselves, or as much to themselves as possible. I will tell you from driving past the Horse Hill parking lot, when I get in my car and drive anywhere, which is unusual, parking lot is always full. So, but I can also see it when we go out for our walks too. So that's certainly very busy. The other thing is the Timasian land donation, the one that I've been working on. We're still working on putting the deed information together. I think we're making progress, but I don't think we'll be taking any votes or anything until later in January at the earliest. So my plan is to work out the deed with the town attorney as well as with the donators and get that laying flat, and then we'll take a look at it. So, and we can discuss it during a meeting, which is important because I want you all to see it, also to avoid any conflict with me being an abutter to the parcel. So you'll have that as well. So that should be coming along shortly. think everyone is willing. There were some concrete structures on the parcel. Those have been removed as well. So that's all good progress. So that's my update.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Eric?
Yeah, as Tim said, I've been working on the report on the Wasserman Walk. It is effectively done. I'm just waiting on, I just wanted Tim to have a sort of final look over it just to make sure it was all right. But so the walk is, the report is effectively done. And that's it.
Okay. I didn't really have anything. Just to remind everyone, though, the next meeting of the Conservation Commission is January 4th, followed by January 25th. And then we only have the one meeting in February, which is February 8th. So I can't recall. I think last year we canceled one of the meetings in January. I believe it was the first one, just a lack of an agenda for that. But nothing we want to do now. Those will all be virtual meetings, but we'll keep an eye on it. And if we don't have a full agenda or enough to support having a meeting, we'll send out an email and make arrangements otherwise. But no one has anything else? Would anyone who hasn't made a motion tonight like to make a motion?
Happy New Year.
Yes, that's right. Yes, Happy New Year. And I'll update our calendar for our meetings. I don't believe anything's been proposed for the subcommittees yet, right? Okay, so I'll put in what we have scheduled then into our calendar.
I don't think anybody's going to mind seeing 2020 end.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, there's going to be a huge parties on New Year's Eve at home by themselves.
Huge
Parties at home
right?
by yourself. Yeah, I mean.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Tim, second by Cindy. All in favor. Let's see. Oh, can't do all in favor. Mike Boisvert.
Yes.
Cindy.
Yes.
Mike Druin.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
And I am a yes. So that motion carries 7.
Don't forget Gina.
Yes.
Did I really forget Gina?
I think so.
That seems impossible. So unforgettable. She's right in the middle of my screen, for goodness sake. She's got the center square in Hollywood Squares. Sorry. Now the motion carries 7-0-0. Thanks again, Mike, and I appreciate you all for joining. Have a wonderful night.
Right.
Bye.